Is it also possible that we're just getting too focused in tunnel vision on these conflicts and the potential dangers that they bring, that maybe we were overplaying it, that it's really that it's things
I
aren't as
no.
serious as they are? Because I was just I was at my son's 2-year-old soccer practice, and I was talking to another dad there, and he's like, "Oh, we just had a hurricane." I'm like, "Oh, well, the apocalypse option B or A here or B here. We got Ukraine, Russia, and I just
Yeah,
realized that I'm in a completely different world than
yeah,
everybody else, and I had to stop myself talking about these things because he's just asking about what I've been into or
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about. I'm like,
yeah.
and I
No,
could
no,
see he
most,
was
yeah,
like, "Whoa, what?"
yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, "Am
Right,
I?"
right. No, no, no. You're right. Most people just aren't really aware of it, but it is real. I mean, it's just like there's nothing here that we're talking about that's not real. These risks are real, and it's gonna come home to bite all of us. I mean, like the dad at the soccer field, he's gonna feel it too at some point. I mean, you could say maybe he's actually just more practical and than we are. Say there's
Mm,
not a whole lot we can do about this, but what we're observing is real. It's like we got a pair of binoculars and we can see these things that are happening, right at their horizon there, and they're
right.
terrifying. It's not like we're making any of this stuff up, but a lot of people just go on with their lives, if and in a way you can't blame them. You know how much work it is being a dad and a husband, and
Mm.
so they focus on that. It's just in the end, it's going to affect all of us. I think and in a very big way. It just can't. That's going to end in places like the U.S. has actually been much more insulated than other parts of the world, but Europe is already being severely affected by this. This war has had a huge impact on the European economy, and not in a good way. Yeah, there was recently Draghi came out, with his report and say, yeah, Europe is basically screwed, and he admitted that a lot of the problem was extraordinarily high energy prices, but he just wouldn't actually talk
Doesn't
about,
admit
yeah,
why there's high
why, yeah.
prices,
It's
you
just like
know.
it's just something that happened, but it was
And,
obviously decisions not that the Russians took, but that the Europeans themselves took.
well,
The
and the
European
U.S.
establishment.
I mean, the U.S.
Yeah. Oh,
blew
yeah.
up the Nord
Yeah.
Stream.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the West in general. So anyway, it's already affecting people in Europe, and some Europeans are obviously waking up to this. So you do not quite a few. I mean, we're not talking about a tiny minority. Um, they feel they know what's happening. So that's why in Germany and in France, and other European countries, you're getting some actually a real growth in the parties that oppose the Ukraine war. They understand that it's been very harmful to Europe. They know that this is real, this matters, and it's actually threatening the future of Europe. Now, the U.S. has just been, we're off by ourselves, and we generally just don't feel the consequences of our foreign policy mistakes here. We do really stupid things, but it's just like it's always on the other side of the ocean, and we don't do it. But if I think this is big enough that we just will not be able to escape the consequences. It's just like Boris Johnson said, that Western hegemony is really on the line here. I mean, that it's if the Russians deal or inflict an obvious defeat on NATO here, it's going to have repercussions around the world. Of course, it already has, but it's going to have repercussions that the dad at the soccer field is going to experience.
What kind of repercussions? I
Well,
mean, hopefully we're
eventually,
not
it's
all vaporized.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the worst
Well, okay,
repercussion.
there is a possibility, a threat of nuclear war. I hope, of course, that we don't, you know, fall into that abyss. But it's there. I mean, it's just that these people have become very reckless, and they're pushing they are coming up to the brink. Okay, there's that. But then there's also just the blow to U.S. prestige is inevitably is going to. I think people don't realize the extent to which our prosperity depends on the prestige of the U.S. and, in particular, the confidence that's placed in the U.S. financial system and in the dollar in particular. And so, I think that's probably most likely the way it would play out. It's just that that's already being eaten away, eroded, by U.S. actions over the last few years. And some U.S. politicians, including Trump, has come up and said this, like, we're in danger of becoming a third world nation. And it's just like, the U.S. dollars. Now, his solution, I think, would only make things worse. Is like to penalize anybody who stops using the dollar or something. That's just going to
Right.
drive
That's why
more.
you got to get rid of the dollar.
Yeah,
It's like
right.
it's not
Exactly. People
fair.
look at that and say that, look,
Oh.
right. But that's, yeah. So it's not just us. In domestic politics, there is some talk about this. There is some awareness of this, and. I think most likely, that's how we're going to, see the effects that are going to are going to have a clear impact on the average citizen, the one that hasn't taken an interest in foreign affairs or anything. In the end, it's just to a great extent his prosperity is dependent on the goodwill towards the United States, and that goodwill is evaporating.